Over the next few tutorials, what I'm going to do is create 3 different pad sounds. And I'm going to use 3 different instruments, 3 different VST plugins. The reason for this is it's not necessarily too important what tool, what instrument you use to create a pad sound. The important thing is the concepts behind it. And therefore, by using 3 different synths, 3 different plugins, you'll be able to take the concepts and apply it to almost any synth, any plugin you encounter. I'll be using Serum, Icarus and Diva. 3 very popular plugins, 3 very popular synths, also very powerful, but importantly, Serum in particular has amazing visual feedback, which makes a world of a difference when you're learning, and even once you've learned the concepts, having the great visual feedback is just a much more efficient and enjoyable way of working. As you can probably imagine, without visual feedback, there's a fair amount of guesswork involved, a bit of guesswork and trial and error. So with the great visual feedback, you can see precisely what's going on. And then Icarus is somewhere in between the two. So Serum has lots of great visual feedback, Diva has almost none, and Icarus has a bit, but not as much as Serum. Let me now load up Serum though and show you Oscillators, which is the main content of this tutorial, but also the start of every single sound. Most synthesizers generate the initial bit of sound, the initial bit of something, using an oscillator. What an oscillator is, if you deconstruct the word, is something that oscillates or moves backwards and forwards, and that moving backwards and forwards really fast creates sound, which is exactly what's going on in a speaker. When the speaker cone moves forwards and backwards, it oscillates. That vibrates the air, which you can hear as sound. Different oscillators in different synthesizers work in different ways. In the case of Serum, it's a wavetable oscillator. You choose a wavetable, then choose a cycle from that wavetable using the wavetable position, the WT pos parameter. In this wavetable, most of the cycles are pretty similar, but then you'll find some of the wavetables have wildly different sounds depending on where you are in that wavetable. Choose one you like, bearing in mind you can always change this later, and that's a pretty good workflow actually, but for the time being, I like this. So I'll save and move on to Icarus. Icarus is also a wavetable synthesizer, but it represents these wavetables using visual feedback in a different way. Choose a wavetable, and move through the wavetable to select a cycle using the wave parameter. Perfect, I will choose that one. Now, Diva is a synthesizer that emulates the world of analog synthesizers, so the hardware synthesizers you see in the studios of guys like deadmau5 or any big impressive studio with a bunch of expensive looking machines. And in the case of Diva, therefore, the oscillators have strange sounding names. They're called VCOs. VCO standing for voltage controlled oscillator. VCOs being from the world of modular synthesizers, but whenever you see VCO, just think oscillator. Notice each of these VCO options in Diva has its own set of controls and its own idiosyncrasies. For example, you can change the shape of the waves. All three are still triangles, but with their own subtle differences. So the key thing here is not the specifics necessarily of how Diva works and the difference between, say, analog 1 and analog 2, but rather each VST instrument will have its own way of working, its own way of generating that initial sound, maybe with its own terminology too. And it's in these oscillator modules that the synth generates that first bit of sound that you can then shape into a pad. That'll work for me, and there you have it, oscillators.